ever had that moment where instead of actually practicing our instrument, we are online on some sort of shopping site like Facebook Market, eBay, Instagram Shop, TikTok Shop, whatever your choice is. We all do that thing where we're always scrolling through the music instrument section, and one day you find something that you're absolutely gobsmacked and thought you'd never own. Well, that happened to me on Sunday, which was I bought this unique guitar that I hadn't seen in quite a while, but it's always been on the back of my mind because of its odd and obscure design and purpose. What's that guitar, you're asking? Well, quite simply, this guitar. This is an Epiphone inspired by 1966 Century guitar. Or it's the short version, basically, the Epiphone Century 66 guitar. I mean, come on, Epiphone. Even I could come up with that in 5 seconds. How did you know? The reason why I discovered it, or at least was interested, was mainly because the price. Now these guitars have been out of production since I think near the end of the 2010s, if I remember right, and they usually go really pricey. But this guitar, do you know how much I paid for this? £220. I'm not joking. I couldn't believe my eyes. I had to do like 10 double takes to get my head around the price. But basically, I spoke to the couple I bought it from. They had bought this guitar, but like anyone else, when you buy a guitar, you don't really use it much. Now, you know, whatever reason, they just didn't feel they wanted it, so decided to give it to a new home. And obviously, you know, because I do like bargains, I decided to chip in, send a message, and I took the chance. So, what is this strange guitar? Now, you probably think it's like some sort of acoustic guitar, but it isn't. Because it's got a P90, so you're like, oh, it's an electric guitar. But it isn't even that either, because it's got this wooden bridge, which, you know, it's a bit bizarre. So this guitar came about a couple of years ago. I think this came out about 2016, 2017, around that period. This was inspired by a guitar that Epiphone produced in the 1960s, back when they were trying to find ways to make affordable guitar for guitar players who probably couldn't afford the Gibsons, because, well, I mean, have you seen their prices? And I'm not talking about now, even back then they weren't cheap. So they would make some unique and interesting guitars like this. Now, the reason why Epiphone reissued this guitar years later was because a certain singer-songwriter guitar player by the name of James Bay bought his Epiphone Century, and he was just in the process of being signed up, and one day he went into a shop in America and he found this unique and bizarre guitar because, well, it is. It kind of reminds me of the Fender guitars, Fender Bass 6 or Dan Electro's version, that escapes me. Because you're like, what is that guitar? Is it a bass? Is it a guitar? Is it a baritone? Who knows? It's his own design. It's like this. Is this an electric guitar or is this an acoustic guitar? I don't know, but you get a unique design with it. Now obviously James Bay isn't the only one who has used this. The other two guitar players I also think of didn't actually play the Epiphone version. They played that original Gibson ES150 guitar. And the two that comes to mind are two British guitarists, Jeremy Spencer in Fleetwood Mac, and then of course there's Andy Bell. Andy Bell is the guitarist for Ride, also the bassist in Oasis, but he would often be playing this guitar, or the Gibson version at least, on his Instagram videos. Because, well, simply, it's basically an acoustic guitar, but it's got the body shape of an electric, you know, because a lot of acoustic guitars, for me, I always struggle with, because the body shapes always put me off, or maybe the strings or the neck, but this is almost kind of like the electric guitar version of an acoustic guitar, and I've got to say, it's actually one of the nicest, unique guitars I've played. Now it should be mentioned, when I bought the guitar, it wasn't in the best condition. It wasn't like terrible, but there was a few things that needed to be done. First off was the strings. The strings were clearly very old and almost black, and I could felt it on my fingers. It was also very messy. There's also a few scratches. I don't know if you can see it, but I'll show you in the B-roll. But there's a few scratches, which honestly isn't too bad when you start playing, because you don't really notice it that much. So what I did was I changed the strings, and I also had to change the action, because Christ, the action was something else. It was alright when you play like the first 3 frets, you know, your typical cowboy chords, but anything over that, it had that kind of neck dive, so I had to really mess about with the action. It took me all night on Sunday to actually get it sorted, and eventually I got it sorted, and now it plays a bit comfortable to my liking. And I should mention the strings on here are the Alexa OptiWeb 11 gauge strings. Now I know for James Bay's guitar, his was, I think, the flat ones, except for the G string, which is it's a rounded G. what do I think of the guitar? Well, apart from its awkward shape, it's one of those guitars you're not going to love immediately. I think James Bay even said it in his interviews. It is a guitar that's limited, but it's one of those guitars that makes you have a fight with it in a good way. And try to get used to the body shape. I'm not really used to this kind of. Look at this thing. Look at it. And trying to adjust the wooden bridge, which is something else. And it's also got a P90. Now, this is the funny thing. I've never really had a good relationship with P90s. I don't know why. It's just a pickup I've never got on with. I think it's always because it used to feed back really badly when you're pressing like distortion pedals, which that was obviously my fault because you're supposed to be using overdrive, but you can use some of it if it's not noiseless. And I've got to say, this is actually the nicest P90 pickup I've ever played, which is mental because all the other ones I've always had issues with. But then maybe it's because it's a hollow body, so you're getting a bit more of acoustic sound, but you get that more treblier sound. It's a unique guitar. It's just, what could be said? I mean, 2 words, James Bay, that's all you need. James Bay, he used it, and he did alright. So, who is this guitar made for? Well, if I'm being honest, I think really it's more of a songwriter's guitar. If you're gonna try and play shreddy metal, forget it. You are not gonna love this guitar. I mean, you could try, but it's not gonna work. This is really a guitar if you're a songwriter or maybe blues, or use the Andy Bell approach and just play it like an acoustic guitar without actually plugging it in. But it's definitely a guitar I do plan on experimenting on because it's just a guitar like no other. So my advice, if you see a unique guitar that you're fascinated by but don't know, I'd say give it a try, whether it's actually in a shop or if it's a second-hand guitar or whatever, give it a try, If it's not for you, fair enough, but you might get some unique sound out of it that you probably didn't think you could done before if you're playing on any other guitar. Do you own an Epiphone inspired by 1966 Century? Or better yet, do you own a unique, bizarre guitar that no one's heard of, that inspires you to play differently? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, I've been Blair Harrison, aka Harrison of the Productions, and I will see you all next time for another video, wherever be. Take care, folks.